You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean. Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Good Wife After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Good Wife After Show.
Oh, I love that music because that means it's another episode of The Good Wife. I am your host tonight, Courtney Henderson, and I am once again alone in the studios. My lovely co-host is out sick, and so please keep your fingers crossed for her that she will feel better so that she can join me in the studio next week and we can, share all of our opinions together. I am so excited to be back in the studio talking with you guys. We were off last week because there was no new episode. So tonight we have episode 17, A Material World, which, as we all know from the case, is yet again another perfect title for an episode. And I just want to dive right in. Of course, we are still feeling the after effects of Will Gardner's death. Had to say goodbye to Josh Charles on the show. And we see the opening shot. It's one of my favorites I can recall from the entire series because I personally love two shots. And it's just Diane and Alicia drinking their martinis at Will's funeral, or just after Will's funeral in a bar close by. And I love the shot because it's sort of, they talk about Will and the things that are said in his eulogy, or maybe the different family members that spoke at the funeral. And I love Diane's line when she says, do they not know him, or did we not know the real Will? And I mean, I of course want to believe that we know the real Will because that's who we saw, that Diane and Alicia know him. And I would say on some level that probably Alicia more than anybody, because there's going to be times, that in the real life world of this, even though they're characters, there's going to be things that happen between them that we didn't see. And I feel like his whole life was a law, and he came back to it after the 6-month suspension in the last season. And so, of course, they know him, but that's just my opinion. I mean, it kind of made me think about which life of mine do my family know me better, or do my friends know me better, or my colleagues and coworkers? So I'm gonna make sure I do a good job of trying to merge those two. Let me know what you think. Did you think that Will was known by his family or known by his coworkers and sort of Lockhart Gardner and all of the people that came along with that? And I'll jump right in from there. We go into the girls talking and drinking more and talking more. And then we start talking about merging. And I kind of think that that is a little bit of, I don't want to say a cop-out, because these writers, I will fight for them to the death. I feel like they 100% know what they're doing, especially with this season having such a heads up of Josh Charles leaving the show. But I just think that I don't think the merger is going to happen. I know that's predictions. We'll get to that later. But they start talking about a merger. And they're doing it, drinking. And Alicia kind of mentions it jokingly because Diane gets a phone call. And then Diane kind of brings it up more serious. But again, she's just talked about how her dad calls her a sloppy drunk. So it goes on, and it leads into the case. And this case, of course, is a Lockhart Gardner client divorcing a Floric Agos client. And we see Diane and Alicia take over the case pretty much from David Lee and Carrie Agos and try to kind of make a peace or a truce within this case and just get the clients both happy, which is a huge step back from the way that they've been treating any cases fought against each other since Floric Agos, came to be, because of course there was a lot of personal things that we've talked about with the two, with Carrie and with Alicia leaving and starting their own firm. But this is Diane and Alicia coming in cooling down the temperature, as Diane put it. And I really like the way that they did that. They just kind of took over. You know, as a woman, I love seeing strong women doing strong women things and making decisions. And, you know, I'm not saying there's not room for men in this world, but, you know, make sure there's room for us girls. And Diane and Alicia absolutely made their presence known in this case. And we see throughout the episode in this case how it starts to evolve, and Alicia and Diane at one point start to kind of fight back and get ugly and sort of start to play dirty, if you will, kind of like Carrie and David are used to and liking. And we see them go to court, and we see the video come out and all of the different things within the case. And I have to admit, at one point, I actually thought they're setting them up. It's a setup, that the girls are sort of faking to play dirty. And at the end of the episode, we see Diane call, but we don't know that Alicia is or isn't on board, that this is or isn't for real, that it was a setup or not. So I'm hoping that we see in the future whether there's a setup or not, as far as, was it intentional that they kind of played nice, played dirty to try to get people on board, or was that just sort of the way that it went? Because while they aren't merged and wanting to, they absolutely have to, you know, look out for the best interests of the firm that they have at hand currently. Along the lines of merging, I love Kalinda. She's growing on me more and more. Again, as one of the strong women of the show, she's kind of coming out of the background a little bit. And we see her giving her alliance, in my opinion at least, giving her alliance to Diane the way that she had an alliance with Will. And I loved that, because Diane asks her to go get his files and his work boxes because his family boxed them up. And I'm kind of actually surprised that she wasn't the one that was asked to box that stuff up anyways, just because it is confidential material, it is files, that maybe there wouldn't be some sort of legality to having family members box up, you know, work product when the work is something like client attorney type privilege stuff. So Kalinda goes, and I love that the photo was of her and Will, and it's not even like a photo of them, it's like them standing by each other, which is almost more perfect, because as we know, Will and Kalinda, like, I can't ever picture Kalinda actually posing for a photo on purpose. And so I love that, and I love that she took it. It was the most appropriate thing in her own little way. It shows her grieving and mourning, but also kind of moving on and sort of like working and giving this alliance to Diane in his honor. She goes to Diane and she tells them that Damien and David Lee know that her and Alicia have talked merger, because of course we saw earlier in the episode that Damien overheard Alicia and Diane talking at the bar after Will's funeral. Whatever Damien was doing there, who knows? He says it was because he liked Will. Maybe it is, but I feel like he's kind of always on the prowl for dirt, which we see later about him, because again, Kalinda saving the day for Diane. She goes and she gets the Donnelly family and basically makes it so Damien has to quit the firm and can't be the turning vote for David Lee and partners to remove Diane from her executive seat at the table. So I love that. I mean, I'm assuming he's off the show now because, or we won't see as much of him because he no longer works for Lockhart Gardner. She got rid of him because he had a little side project, a little side client that Lockhart Gardner would very much not agree with or approve of. And so he's gone. And that was easy, almost too easy. But of course, we see Michael J. Fox returning as Mr. Canning. So, you know, this easy keeping Diane in the executive partner seat will absolutely not last long. It's already, you know, starting to turn, but again, we'll save that for next week, because the thing that I want to talk about more than anything, based on this episode, and really just, I mean, the whole show, is, you know, Alicia frickin' Florrick. And I have to say, Diane and Alicia both said friggin' in this episode, and part of me just had to laugh because I feel like neither of them have ever said it in the show before. I almost wish there was a way to, like, check that, to, you know, like, to Google the transcripts, or, you know, like the different scripts of every single episode to see if either of them have ever said that word, because the writers had both of them saying it in this episode. And it just, I don't know, it just was like a little, haha, there go the writers again, because they're very good. And I feel like nothing that they do is accidental. even down to the details of Alicia laying in bed and what's playing on the TV. And of course, Grace walks in as the guy saying, all you can do is curse God. But Alicia, I just want to talk about Alicia because I feel like this episode is kind of, I mean, they all are, but this one in particular is just sort of like this awakening for her. And maybe you don't agree, please let me know. You can find me on Twitter at COUHEN. So tweet me and let me know whether you agree with this or not. But I think that this is sort of a long time coming for Alicia. And she's had this awakening because of Will's death, of course. And she's starting to sort of like Diane kind of act more like Will and try to do it's almost sort of like the what would Will do, which would be WWWD. What would Will do? Because they're kind of acting a little bit more ruthless and a little bit more business-minded. Of course, we see Alicia go to court. We see her taking over the case with Carrie. We see her telling him he can't take certain clients that she doesn't want him taking. She goes to Finn, who I am so glad, what an addition to this cast. I love him. Finn Polmar, who saved Will or was with Will and kind of pulled him to safety as much as you can when someone's shot in a courtroom, and was also shot. Alicia goes to him, kind of making sure that he's taken care of and is okay, because I think that that she sort of feels like that's her only ally. I mean, that's the last person that saw and talked to Will before he died, and now we have her sort of offering him legal advice because, of course, the new state's attorney is maybe going to try to throw this whole death on him and Will being shot on him instead of on the Jeffrey Grant, who, of course, we know actually was the one that pulled the trigger, and now they're trying to throw that off of him because the Grant family is a powerful family. So we'll probably see more of that. But Alicia then goes from court on a walk because of the testimony and the questioning that she had to do with the husband in this divorce case, and asking about death and atoms and matter and morality and right and wrong and where do you go when you die. And I don't think in any way she knew leading into it as Alicia Florrick, as an actor. I mean, Juliana Margulies is amazing. She knows exactly what she's doing because she has to start talking about Will without knowing as the character she's talking about Will, asking about death and what happens. And it has to affect her, but she has to be professional and she has to play like 5 different emotions at once. And she freaking does it. Yep, I'm going to keep saying friggin' all night. She friggin' does it. And then she goes on the walk. And of course, it took me a second to realize who it was. But of course, we see her go sit on the bench to try to compose herself. And it's Grace's old tutor who, let's be honest, Alicia was not exactly nice to when they last spoke, kind of saying, she can't really be Grace's friends and she needs to find friends her own age. And, all she wants her to do is tutor Grace. And then, I don't really think that's happening anymore. So we see her, and I just first saw her dancing. She had her like tripod camera thing up, and she's got this flashy gold, almost studded looking sweater. She's just dancing. I just sort of thought it was supposed to symbolize more of a atom, just sort of more like the movement of life, and sort of just people are just atoms, and more of the scientific based on what she had just come from. But then we see that it's Grace's old tutor, and I find it so fascinating that she's the person that Alicia, who, keep in mind, is still the governor's wife, she's the one, this tutor, this crazy dancing tutor, is the one that Alicia goes and confides in that maybe she made a mistake becoming a lawyer. I mean, that's a line, you guys. That is, you can't, the whole show's about Alicia going back and being a lawyer after years. But, come to think of it, she gave that up to be a wife and a mother, a politician's wife, a very good wife, haha, get the name, and she had to go back to the law, and only went back to the law because she had to, out of necessity to survive, to pay for her family, to support her family and pay for their existence, while Peter was in jail for the time that he was in jail earlier on in the series. And I just think that, she's right a little bit. Like, it's right of her to question, and I think, again, props to these writers, the Kings. and I know there's other writers, so to all of you, whichever specific episodes you've written, but specifically to the writers for giving her that complexity as a character and allowing her to question that and be open about it and be a human being and tell her daughter's old tutor, some crazy dancing girl on the street, that, hello, maybe I shouldn't have become a lawyer. You know, and of course, then we have to think, is she talking about because she met Will when she became a lawyer and now she wouldn't be having to go through this mourning if she hadn't met Will and if she hadn't become a lawyer? Is she talking about because she doesn't like the law? Is she talking, you know, there's so many questions about why she would not be sure about being a lawyer, and what are the writers trying to do with her in bringing this question up. And, you know, I don't know if we'll see this again. I hope that we see a little bit more of this journey and path that she's sort of going to start discovering, and just, you know, see kind of like how it pans out, because I think she had to become a lawyer, because she absolutely had to meet Will, because I think that whatever comes next in the rest of season 5 and in season 6 and, you know, and more, you know, should we be granted them, because I mean, this is what set up her life, and she needed that love that Will gave her as a comparison to everything else going on in her life. Because as we know, when she and Peter finally cross paths at the end of the episode, she's missed the dinner because after she talked to the tutor, she just went home to bed, missed her meeting with Finn representing him, which to me was a huge thing in showing how she's feeling and where she's really at with this whole death, because she went to Finn to try to help protect him. And kind of like, and not the other way around. I mean, she wasn't saying like, I want to be your lawyer. She's saying you should watch your back and trust no one, because, you know, your good buddy in the state's attorney's office just might be trying to pin this on you. Well, guess what? That's what happens. He calls Alicia and she misses the meeting. And then we, of course, see that she misses another meeting with Diane and David for the divorce case, and they have to sort of settle that without her. And we see her laying in bed and her kid's taking care of her with tea and medicine. And Finn comes to the house because he missed the meeting. And first of all, I mean, I do love the writers, and I feel like maybe something else in the future again will remedy this. But for me, I was 100% uncomfortable that Finn came to her house and into her bedroom. I mean, I know she's sick and she said it was okay that he come in, but I was really surprised that the writers didn't send her even to the door, you know, just to come out, because, I mean, this is the governor's wife. This is her home. She's a lawyer and she's sick in bed for whatever the reason is. And I know that they're sort of building this ally, and I know that they're sort of friends, but I mean, come on, he's a married man, happily married. I don't think anything's going to happen between Alicia and Finn in a sexual way, but come on, I mean, you don't go into your lawyer's bedroom. You don't go into the governor's wife or the governor, you know, the governor's bedroom and have a conversation with his wife. You just don't do that. And so for me, that really made me uncomfortable. They sort of address it when Finn leaves and Peter comes in the door, and it's sort of like, who's this guy that's like leaving my house conveniently as I'm coming in the house from the dinner that my wife totally didn't show up at? Like, I mean, I feel like that wasn't quite the acknowledgement. I feel like if he'd come into the room, maybe she should have, you know, helped escort him out and kind of gone up and been a little bit more lively. I don't know. I mean, am I just weird? I just feel like it's a little weird that people are doing legal business inside a bedroom. I'm not cool with that. So I didn't like that. I think that I'll just kind of get, you know, into predictions, I guess, because the last few things I want to say are going to lead us beyond this episode.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Thank you to my beautiful engineer for always having the predictions music. It's kind of one of my favorite things because it always reminds me of Halloween, even though it is not October. Just kind of spooky. But predictions I'm going to just kind of go for next episode, of course, but also for just the rest of the season and things in general. As we see at the end of the episode, Alicia and Peter really get into it, and it gets ugly. And I love, again, the writers for doing that. I think Alicia, well, we'll say Juliana and Chris, absolutely play that out. It gets as ugly as it needs to. It gets as real as it needs to. And I think that we're going to see not a divorce. I mean, Alicia says that, and I don't think that they would play with that. What we're going to see is marriage as a business. And I think that in today's world, that actually might be a little bit more, I don't want to say authentic, because I do believe that the majority of people out there still do marry for love and they stay married and they work at it. But there are people out there that I think stay married when they're maybe in an unhappy marriage, or they get married with the agreement of sort of having an open marriage, if you will, because they're getting married for some of those financial or career benefits that you don't get as a single person being never married or divorced after a failed marriage. And so Alicia's really kind of like putting her game on, and I don't think that there's somebody else that she wants to sleep with, but I absolutely think that she's totally okay with her husband thinking that. And I feel like he's going to have all the best intentions to try to fight for her. And, you know, we're going to see Michael J. Fox back next week. We're going to see him try to take over Lockhart Gardner. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a merger. But, you know, come back next week. We'll have episode 18. And thank you so much for joining me tonight. Go on Facebook and like us, give us 5 stars if you like what we're talking about. Please let us know what you don't like so that we can talk about the things that you do like. You can tweet at me or find me on Instagram at COUHEN, and let me know what you think of the show. Let me know what you think of me talking about the show, and we will be back next week. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.